This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day. And why is that, you ask? Well, because it's Life Mastery Radio Day. That's why. And it's a time I get together with some really cool people with some really cool thoughts and ideas just for you on your very own life mastery journey. I also get to hang out with my cool friend Jackie. She's pretty cool. We have a blast. We like to go back and forth. We do all kinds of cool things. And what else am I missing? Oh, yeah. Well, before we get started, let's just take a minute and get ourselves centered and situated a little bit, because Jackie and I have a really cool guest for you today, and we're going to talk about some really cool things. But in order for you to grasp the concepts, we need to get centered and situated. So let's just take a minute and think about the cool thoughts and ideas that we're going to hear today. And let's take in a deep breath all the way down, and let that breath out with a big ah, and just let your essence flow up through your heart center, up through the throat chakra, and right out of your speaker box into the universe. Now with this next breath, as you take it in, think about your dreams, visions, and goals. And because of today's show, think about your financial situation maybe a little bit and what you would like to bring into your life. Taking a deep breath and let that breath out with a big and let it all flow out into the universe. And here's the deal. Make sure you're ready and you allow the universe the opportunity to make those come true for you. That's the deal. And they will if you focus on them and apply some concepts. And that's some of the things that we like to talk about here on Life Mastery Radio. I also like to talk to my co-host, since I don't like to talk a lot.
You don't like to talk a lot? What?
Not Jackie what I would have guessed. Here as always. She's the sidekick of Life Mastery. I don't know the sidekick. She maybe she.
We went over this last week. I am your Robin to your Batman. I am the Robin to your Batman.
She also has a not-for-profit, and things are really picking up and getting exciting. And I happen to be part of that nonprofit, which is pretty cool. And we're teaching a bunch of kids this week. Oh my gosh.
It's record-breaking.
It's record-breaking. We have fifth graders, right, Jackie? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a record-breaking Thursday this week because a local elementary school, actually a couple of teachers and a parent on the PTSA contacted me about coming in and doing some workshops for their 124 fourth graders who are still learning virtually. And I said, well, of course I would do that, but we can't teach all 124 of them public speaking skills and have them be engaged.
Can you imagine?
Time. So Todd and some other teachers are going to go with me on Thursday in this virtual setting. We're going to break them off into groups and we're going to teach these fourth graders how to be effective conversationalists. There's 5 rules to that we teach in our curriculum. And so we're going to be working on this. So 124 kids in one day. That's a record for the Speak Feed Lead project. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. It's, it is really a big deal. Jackie and I have been involved in Toastmasters for many years. We both worked our way up through the leadership all the way to the top, at least as far as we could go, right, Jackie?
Pretty much. Well, at least as far as we want to go, at least for me.
Being the bus driver of 4,000 people is as far as I want to go. but we've had the opportunity to be involved with kids and watch kids, and oh my gosh, it's amazing to watch young adults, young people deliver speeches, talk about things they're passionate about, and really, really speak from the heart about these things. And you watch these kids and you think, that's the future president of the United States, man. This guy, he's getting skills, or she's getting skills that I didn't get until I was 50, really.
Right.
It's
Well,
pretty
it's
cool.
nice teaching kids because you actually see the aha moment
Oh man.
as it takes place. With adults, usually they'll go, "Oh, let me think about that." But kids are like, "What?" I mean, you can just see their countenance change when they finally figure it out. And it's really amazing to be able to see that. And then to watch the transformation from the really shy kid who doesn't want to talk to you and they're like this. And then a few classes in, they're looking at the camera and they're smiling while they're telling you about something that they really like. It's amazing.
It's a huge transformation, and the
Yeah.
return on investment, it's just off the charts. You cannot pay for this kind of experience or this kind of training that would make a difference in somebody's life. So it's pretty cool. I mean, you could pay for the training. I guess what I'm trying to say is the return on investment is just huge.
Well, I'll tell you, most young people today don't get public speaking training until they get into college. And by that point, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
and from what I've heard is the college programs really aren't even that great.
Well, there's debate.
Yeah. And so having these kids learn these skills early, I think is going to make a huge difference for them. As you say, if any one of them become president of the United States, I hope they put me on their cabinet. Anyway, there's payback coming.
You can find out more by going to speakfeedlead.org.
Right.
And that's Jackie's website. It's a nonprofit's website. If you're looking for some coaching, though, and you have a presentation coming up, look for JackieBaileySpeaks.com or get a hold of Jackie one way or another. And she's the best. She'll help coach you through that presentation. So it's pretty cool
Coaching
stuff.
some champions right now. That's contest season.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so I'm coaching about 3 or 4 adults who are in competition, and so far they've all won at each level. So we're continuing to work together. So that's
we're going to keep track of that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Jackie Bailey Speaks. Okay, I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.com or .net, whichever one you prefer. And any links that we talk about with our guests today will be found right there. While you're there, you'll see a little box you can click to sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter, really cool. It goes out once a week. Jackie spends a lot of time creating it. It's very crafty and very appealing, and it lets you know who's been on the show, who's coming on the show. And Jackie always creates a blog post about the show that we just did. And it's some pretty good reading. It's to see what she gets out of what we talk about. And I'm like, where did that, man, I don't remember talking about it. It's pretty cool. So there you go. And while you're there, you can check out my book. There's a link there to Amazon, 6 Keys to Life Mastery. Yay, unlocking life skills that will help you with your life. It's a pretty cool little book and you will dig it. Jackie has a book too. We got to get a link on the website, but Jackie's got a book. There's her book, Self-Centered Leadership.
We are all book people.
She wrote that book and I got so jealous I had to write my book. That's the
You've
truth.
been stalking me.
We were in a club together and she said, look what I got. And I'm like, I can do that. So I did it too. Okay, I think that's enough sweeping up the floor or housekeeping. I'm sorry.
No,
I think
I had to sweep
Jackie,
the floor.
I don't have an introduction. Do you have an introduction?
I have an introduction, but you mentioned sweeping the floor, and I had to vacuum before the show started this morning because I walked in this morning and I had an invasion of ants overnight. Ants. I hate ants with an absolute
Jackie's the ant lady.
Passion, and so they had gone all through my kitchen, so I had to clean up the kitchen, and then I thought maybe I ought to vacuum too and get any leftovers. So anyway, so I have done some housekeeping this morning. But I would be happy to introduce Rennie. He is a recent acquaintance of mine and very delighted to have made that acquaintance and to have him on our show today. So this is his deal because after 2 divorces and a business failure, Rennie Gabriel went from broke at age 50, been there, to multi-millionaire. Not there yet. After learning the 3 secrets of the wealthy. Now, this is all despite the fact that he failed high school math. Been there. All right. Rennie now donates 100% of the profits from his online programs teaching wealth to a charity called Shelter to Soldier. This is really cool. What they do is they train dogs that have been rescued that are in shelters that often will euthanize them. He takes them from there, or this nonprofit does. They take the dogs from there. They train them to be companion dogs to wounded military personnel. It's pretty amazing. And now Rennie says 90% of the population here in America has been taught nothing about handling money effectively, including, he says, CPAs and financial planners. But Rennie's got this program where he's going to teach you the 3 secrets that wealthy people know that the rest of us just totally, miss out on. And he's going to help you to learn how to have others to pay off your debt. All right. And there's 5 things that keep you broke. Interesting. So he is a TEDx speaker. His TEDx talk is pretty amazing. You should listen to it if you can. The link to that will be in the blog. And his award-winning best-selling book called Wealthy on Any Income has now been translated into 8 languages.
Cute to hold up the book, Rennie.
Yeah, hold up your book.
Oh, great. I just froze.
He froze.
Oh, there you are.
You're back.
Oh my gosh, the camera changed. Oh, I wasn't even on it.
All right. Wealth on Any Income. So, ladies and gentlemen, today this is going to be a show you don't want to miss because if you
and tell your friends about it.
Yeah. This is going to be it.
But
so
first,
please welcome Rennie.
we got to know one thing, Rennie, and this is just the amazing part of your whole story is you studied and spent a big part of your life being a financial planner, and then at age 50 you were broke. How does that work?
Well, the reality, a couple divorces and a business failure will do that. But the other part, I realized on this journey to create wealth was that as a certified financial planner, I was not taught the foundations of handling money effectively, which is really kind of sad. I mean, like Jackie said, 90% of the population hasn't received this information because parents can't teach what they don't know, and teachers can't teach what they've never learned. And so when you look at the system and you say, well, wait a second, I'll get the information from my CPA. It's not in their coursework on how to teach their clients how to handle money effectively, like do a personal budget. Because I've asked hundreds of CPAs, not one has said it's been in their coursework. Now, as a certified financial planner, I know it wasn't in mine. And what was I taught? I was taught about stocks and bonds and mutual funds and life insurance and annuities and how to help wealthy people stay wealthy or protect it, not how to create it.
Why do you think that is, Rennie? Is it part of the system that says, let's not teach them too much because otherwise they won't need us? Is that a possibility?
Conspiracy theories can make sense in situations. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's too many people are taken advantage of by credit issuing institutions and banks. And it's sort of like, well, if you can turn people into wage slaves for the rest of their life, and that makes you profitable, I guess that's an incentive for the companies.
Yeah.
What are some of the mind blocks that a lot of people have around money and finances? What comes to your mind, Rennie, when we think about what blocks us?
Well, they're attitudes, and I call them myths that keep people broke, because they're ingrained in us from society, from our parents, because they really hadn't thought things through. And one of the most damaging really is the idea that you have to pay off your credit cards before you can begin saving or investing for yourself.
Mm.
And I've heard this from CPAs. I've heard this from other financial gurus, and it doesn't work. And they'll say, well, wait a second, you got credit cards at 14, 16, 18%. You need to pay that off first before you can earn 8, 10, or 12%. Okay, on the surface, that sounds like it makes sense. But unfortunately, it doesn't work because we are human beings.
Mhm.
And here's why it doesn't work. I'll use an analogy. Jackie, can I use you as a guinea pig?
It happens to me every day.
All right. So let's say you wanted to build muscles. You were feeling a little flabby. You wanted to build muscles. And I said, okay, Jackie, change your diet. Eat fresh fruits, eat vegetables, eat salads, whatever. I'm talking about your diet. How is that going to support you to create muscles?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would assume that by eating better, my muscles will be more prepared for the next step, which would be actually lifting weights in order to break the muscle down. But you do have to have
I
a good
didn't
diet in
say
order to
you
prepare
would
that.
lift weights. I just talked about your diet.
Right.
So until you lift weights, you can't build the muscles. Dieting and building muscles are two different functions of your body. Paying off credit card debt is like dieting. That will not create the assets that will allow you to create wealth.
Mm.
And that's the mistake people have. And I've seen it over and over again. They pay off the credit card debt. Some emergency comes up. The debt comes back on. They pay that off. It comes back. It goes back and forth like a roller coaster. Well, what roller coasters go back and forth? No, they go up and down.
They go up and down.
But the point being, they end up at some late stage of their life finally having no debt, but they also have no assets.
Right.
And the only way to create the assets is to focus on that, not the credit card debt. And that's what I learned at age 50. I kept the credit card debt. I made the minimum payments, but I focused on building assets. Even though I had debt, I started saving $500 a month. And in 3 years, I'd saved up $18,000. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money for a 53-year-old man, but it was more money than I'd had for decades.
Yeah.
And I was able to use that to start an investment portfolio in real estate with 2 other people. I didn't do it by myself. So, the biggest myth is you don't focus on paying off debt. You focus on building assets instead.
And so how does someone get disciplined enough to do that where you're doing both at the same time? Because I'm assuming you do both at the same time, right?
Yes,
You said
that's
you make
correct.
your minimum payment.
I made the minimum payments on the credit cards, and I set up a structure where every time I got paid anything, and I was earning $5,000 a month. Okay. So $500 a month was 10% of it.
Right.
I mean, that concept has been working for over 100 years. Actually, that concept's been working for 5,000 years because it's been documented in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. So you and I will be long gone and that concept still works.
Right.
So it was the 3rd time trying it. First time didn't work well because the IRS came calling after I finally saved some money and they wanted their taxes, and all of the money I saved went away. But had I been willing to have conversations with other people about what I was doing, not doing it by myself, they might have said, well, yeah, Rennie, if you hadn't saved that money when you were 30 years old, you'd have had to borrow it to pay the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that concept of 10%. 10%, no matter what, 10% should go somewhere else.
Yes.
Because now, does that apply? Because we often hear, make sure you pay yourself first. So Does the
That's the
10%
concept.
go away and then you pay yourself? Is that the deal?
Oh, no. If you pay all your bills first, that sounds like what you said, then
No,
you're
no,
not
no,
paying
no.
yourself first.
No. You
Oh.
take the 10%
Yes.
and you put it away,
Yes, correct.
and then you pay yourself, and then you pay your bills.
Yes, well, if you're talking about a business owner, yeah, that would be the way they would be operating. They set aside 10% as the revenue comes in, terrific. Then they take their paycheck and then they pay their bills. For a lot of people who are on paychecks already, they're employees, then their employer gives them their check. So they've been paid. Now they take 10% and set it aside somewhere. Or they could do it before they get their paycheck, like into a 401k plan or a qualified retirement plan of some other sort. But the point is, what I discovered is this rule of thumb. And I didn't discover this until, I don't know, my late 40s, I think. It's not just that 10%, but there's an additional 10% that needs to be set aside to spend later. And what I'm getting at is anyone who lives on 80% of what they earn will be able to create wealth. 10% will be spent later, like car breaks down, needs new tires, water heater bursts, whatever it is.
Unexpected.
The stuff people don't plan for.
Right.
And that's what ends up on credit cards. That's what creates the credit card debt. So 10% will be spent later, and 10% will be kept for the rest of their life. That's the money that they'll use to build their wealth, whether they buy real estate or they buy stocks or bonds or triple net leases or peer-to-peer lending or whatever.
And you did it. You made your comeback through real estate.
Yes.
That's correct. Okay. And is that something you still are involved in?
Yes, not that I'm buying more, but it provides a huge monthly income that I don't have to do much for. And I've diversified from there into triple net leases and oil and gas and other things.
Wow.
That's something my dad always told me when I was a young lad. He said, he used to tell me, and he wasn't that financially set. He wasn't that into these concepts, and he was just living his life. But he always said, I've never been hurt by buying real estate. I've never been hurt. And so that's always been in the back of my mind, even with the financial crises that we've been through. And I've always come out ahead when I bought property or had those kinds of things. So is that true? I mean, can you go wrong in real estate?
Yeah, if you do it wrong, you can, like what happened in 2008, where people were buying properties they couldn't afford. And then when, everything collapsed, they couldn't keep anything. I didn't have any problem in 2008. We had apartment buildings. Even if they declined in value, it was irrelevant. The people still kept their jobs. They paid their rents. I made my mortgage payments, my utility payments. I paid my personal bills. The worst thing that happened to us in 2008 was that it might have taken 3 or 4 weeks to rent an apartment instead of it being one day.
Yeah.
That was the only difference for us.
So you were able to ride that wave, and then property values increased and you were back on top.
Exactly. And one of the things that I mentioned early on was I didn't do this by myself.
Yeah.
And that
was my next thing.
Yeah. I have this expression, it's wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport. And the reason for that is that if you look at any successful business, whether you're looking at Apple Computer, you're looking at Berkshire Hathaway, you're looking at Hewlett Packard, it doesn't make any difference. It wasn't started by one person. It was two people, and two people with divergent or different skill sets. Yeah. You had one person who was a visionary, and you had another person who was an execution master. Steve Jobs was a visionary. Steve Wozniak was an execution master. He could execute it on Steve Jobs' vision. Warren Buffett, I consider a visionary. And a lot of people haven't heard of Charlie Munger, but he's half of Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
And then you've got Hewlett Packard. I mean, you can go on and on and on. And the key here being no successful major business only had one person. You look at Disney. Walt was a visionary, absolutely. But it was his brother. Roy who kept him grounded in things.
Yeah. I have a successful machine shop, and I can tell you, Rennie, I do not like fussing with money. That is probably the one thing that spreadsheets and all of that stuff. And I certainly have the ability to call money to me and be able to make it and make decisions about it, but fussing with it, I hire people to do that.
Exactly. You operate in your skill set. You operate in your genius zone. And I don't handle the day. I mean, I don't enter things in QuickBooks. I have an assistant for that.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rennie, as you went back to this idea that our attitude is based on how we were raised or how we are patterned after our parents' behavior and perhaps their decisions. Is that likely true in most cases where wealth are concerned? Because you look at generational wealth and families that pass this wealth down to their children, and they never seem to have any problems with that. But then on the other side of the spectrum, right, there are also, if you are born in poverty and you live in poverty, chances are you're going to stay in poverty, and then your children are going to live in poverty. And so I wonder if this is actually a studied principle that says, we learn literally how to handle money from watching how our parents did it. And if they watched their parents do it, and none of that has been successful for generations, how do you break free of that? How do you be the one to change that?
That can only come when you start looking at people outside of your family environment. And the people who've done that have broken free of it. And it's kind of a sad situation because what you're talking about does exist. And one of the books out of the publishing company back when I had that, the very first book we published was called Couples and Money. And when a couple comes together, they're bringing with them how they were raised in their family around money. And so many of the questions in the book are designed to break up that kind of thinking. But again, it's getting outside of what your family tells you and looking elsewhere. And in this book, it asks questions like, what was your mother's role in the home regarding finances? What was your father's role? How are you like your mother or your father? Did you think you were rich or poor? And when a couple has the conversations about how they were raised around money, they can make different decisions for how they handle it and how they'll raise their children. But until you get outside of the family dynamics, things are very likely not to change.
That applies to a lot of things.
But if you look outside of the family, you see society, right? And I think you've mentioned society tells us that wealthy people are mean, they're greedy, they're only looking out for themselves, and that, being poor at least is where the good peeps are. Right? I mean, that we are the ones who really want to help people. We are the ones who actually love our brothers and our sisters, but the wealthy are portrayed in movies and books and even in politics as being greedy, evil people. So how do you, even if you can break free from your family, there's society telling you something too.
You have to end up concept too of money is the root of all evil, right?
Right. It's the love of money, or it's, as an example, there's an expression that a rich man can a camel can pass through the eye of a needle easier than a rich man can get into heaven.
Right.
Which, confirms what Jackie was just saying. Unfortunately, if you go back to the Bible and you actually read about it, it has to do with a camel entering the city of Jerusalem. If it has a full pack, it can't get through the gate, which is called the eye, unless it unloads its pack.
Right.
And so it gets in. But anyway, the point is those things are misinterpreted, but they are used to keep people poor. Yeah. And think of it from the standpoint of, no, I'm not going to get into the religious stuff. But I'm still, my mouth can't keep up with what's going on in my head.
Happens to me a lot, Rennie. Don't worry about it.
All right, great. So here's another way of looking at it. Let's say you have people in your right hand and your left hand. And I'm going to define who those people are. The people in your right hand are your family. It's your siblings. It's the people you've grown up with. It's your close friends. They've known you since childhood. They have a certain vision of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are people in your left hand. And for entrepreneurs, these can be the people that they surround themselves with who are other entrepreneurs. They may be wealthy people. They are the people they want to aspire to be like. And, if you look back, I'm going to break this up a little bit, but the wealthiest people in the world, on the planet, are the biggest philanthropists. You got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you got the Bloomberg Foundation, you've got Buffett contributing, billions of dollars to charities. So they're making an impact. So if you think critically, you look at the wealthiest people, they're making the biggest impact on the planet.
Right.
So getting back to the people in your left hand, they aren't your family. They're the people, if you tell your vision to, and they're entrepreneurs, and they're looking at what the visions are that they're creating, they'll give you guidance. They'll give you support. They'll break up the thinking that's holding you back because they've gone through that ahead of you. And so understanding there are people around you who may be in your right hand or your left hand, when you have a choice of who you're going to tell your vision to, who you're going to share your dreams with, it's best not to do it with the people in your right hand because they maybe have limiting thinking. They know you since a child. They may think you're not capable of it. And that's not the case of the people in your left hand.
It's a mindset, right? And it really has nothing to do with luck, right, Rennie? I mean,
no.
I think I've heard it said that if you took all the money in the world and then equally distributed it back throughout everybody, so everybody had their fair share, it would still end up in the places that it was before you took it away from those people.
Yeah, over time, the wealthy will get it back and the poor people won't have it. If you look at lottery winners, that's a perfect example. People who have won the lottery, 70% of them are in debt beyond their winnings within 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think of it this way. Let me ask the question. Either one of you could answer, both of you could answer. How does more liquor solve a problem of alcoholism?
It doesn't.
No. More money does not solve a problem of mismanagement.
That's true.
Gotcha.
So, until these skills are learned, and that's been what my mission has been for so many years because of the struggles that I went through. I mean, I struggled with money most of my life until I started learning these concepts and they work. I got to share these with other people.
Yeah. That's the cool part because you don't get to keep it unless you give it away, right?
Yeah. I mean, knowing this by myself, I'll give you another example. Every tenant who rents an apartment from me gets a copy of my award-winning best-selling book. And many of those tenants have gone on to buy their own house.
Wow. Cool.
And you think, well, wait a second. Then they left and they're not paying rent anymore. You know what? Someone else moved in and they're paying higher rent.
Right.
I'm coming from a prosperity mindset, not a scarcity mindset. By my teaching my tenants how to handle money more effectively, they pay their rent on time, they save money, they go and buy a house. And I have new tenants that I can teach these same skills to. And the people who struggle, I mean, it was kind of like, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. I remember buying a building in Burbank, and I gave each of the tenants who were living in the building a copy of my book. They weren't paying good rent. I was going to be increasing the rent. And then one of the tenants moved out, and I found my book in the trash.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, he was struggling when he was living there. I gave him the key. He put it in the trash. He's still struggling.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually my definition of what leadership is. It's not someone who develops more followers. It's someone who actually develops more leaders. So it sounds like that's the principle that you live by, is that you're not out to increase your tenant base. You're out to help your tenants to become their own landlords, essentially,
yes.
Right? And
That's
that benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
And
it doesn't hurt you.
Yeah, one of the tenants got back to me a few years later telling me about the triplex that he purchased.
Yeah.
That's called the law of reciprocity, I think.
Yeah. So again, it's the prosperity mindset instead of the scarcity mindset.
Totally.
Well, and that's why I want to someday be wealthy, is because I want to be able to give.
more.
Yeah, I want to be able to serve more. I want to be able to be involved in more philanthropic projects and things like that. And that's exactly what you do, right,
Yes.
Rennie? You are associated now with a nonprofit that is doing marvelous things. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that? I alluded to it in the introduction, but tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
It's sheltertosoldier.org. And it was founded only about 7 years ago. They take dogs from environments where they could die on the street or in a shelter where they could be euthanized. And if they have the right personality and decent size, they are trained as service animals, not companions, service animals for soldiers who've come back with PTSD or traumatic brain injuries or other issues. Now, unfortunately, our veterans who allow us to do what we do here in this country and have the freedoms that we have are in other parts of the world. And when they come back, they're not treated when they have these issues in the manner to which they could thrive again.
Would you say they're treated a little bit like a dog on the street?
Very close to it.
Yeah.
And their suicide rate is almost 1 an hour, 22 a day. Commit suicide when they have these, I mean, the stuff that they go through, I don't think any of us on this show can handle.
Well, as a veteran, I can appreciate it.
Yeah. And well, I served in the Navy, but it was a different experience in Vietnam, sitting on a ship and eating food at a table and taking a shower, as opposed to high school friends who are crawling through rice paddies.
Right.
I had it completely different. But the point is, not one soldier who's gotten their service dog has committed suicide. Wow. What they do is just amazing. I mean,
and it's a simple concept, right? I mean, this is just basic, is you give and train a companion, well, more like a service dog is what you're saying, but yet that dog understands that it is a companion to this human and gives this human purpose.
Well, not only that, but if, let's say someone is suffering from PTSD and they're in a department store and it's getting crowded and maybe they're starting to melt down.
Yeah.
The dog senses it and removes them from the environment.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
They're having night terrors. The dog jumps on the bed, paws at their chest, wakes them up from night terrors. The dog can turn on light switches, open doors, and do other things depending on the issues that the veteran has.
Yeah, that's so
dogs
cool.
are the best, and they are at their best when they have a purpose.
Absolutely right. And
so
dogs that have a purpose
people.
they're euthanized by the thousands.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. I think you said 1,800 dogs a day are euthanized.
It's thousands a day.
That's just horrible.
And so anyway, so it's well, let me get to a quote from Warren Buffett, because I just think the man is terrific. He says, of the billionaires I've met, money just brings out the basic traits in them. If they were jerks before they had money, they were simply jerks with $1 billion.
Yeah.
And people who think, oh, if I become rich, I'll be corrupt because I see rich people as corrupt. No, if they were corrupt to start with and they get rich, yeah, they'll still be corrupt. But if they're good, like Jackie, like you, Todd, when you have money, you're still good. You're still going to be wanting to benefit and will be benefiting those things that touch your heart.
Good to know. Good to know. So what are the 3 secrets? You have some secrets that you share, but I don't know if you want to share them. Maybe you don't
the
want
words
to.
right out of my mouth. How is it that we?
Yeah, maybe you want people to get the book and learn.
Oh, yeah, you two have been working together really well.
That's right, we are. We sometimes
And for a very long
sentences.
Okay, 3 secrets. It was cool. We just saw the Golden Globes, and it reminds me of an acronym for the 3 secrets. It's AFI, which does not stand for the American Film Institute. The acronym AFI stands for those 3 secrets. And the first is, we've talked about it, the A stands for attitude. Wealthy people have a different attitude than the ordinary people do. And I just wrote a book called Attitudes of the Wealthy with 32 attitudes that wealthy people operate by that most ordinary people don't. I'll give you an example of one. We talked about the expression "pay yourself first." We did that on the pre-show, or we talk about that during this?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Just a little bit though.
You know,
Just
hey,
a little
I'm
bit.
old.
You can expound on it. Trust me.
Yeah, I get confused easily. Okay, so we talked about paying yourself first. A person, an ordinary person's going to hear it, and they're going to make a statement like, "Oh, I've heard that before. That's not new to me. I know about that." Okay. An ordinary person's going to make a statement when they hear information that they're familiar with, like pay yourself first. The attitude of a wealthy person is different. When they hear familiar information, they ask a question instead. And it's like the questions we learned in elementary school when we write an article. It's like who, what, when, where, how. As an example, a wealthy person will say, who can support me with that? Or where will I put the money? Or when will I begin doing that? Or how does that apply to me? Those questions lead to the answers that produce results that move them forward. So that's an example of just one of the 30 attitudes that I've got in the book. And that's what wealthy people do. They ask questions when they hear familiar information. That's an attitude, a different attitude than ordinary people have. The second item, F, stands for forms. And they're forms most people are familiar with. You go to the bank, you want to borrow money. They ask, what do you own? What do you owe? You write it out. It's a balance sheet. But a wealthy person looks at that differently. They don't look at like their house as an asset. They look at their house as a liability. Why? Wait a second. It grows in value. Yes, but it sucks money from you. You pay property taxes, you pay utilities, you pay insurance, you pay for repairs. The house does not generate an income. When a wealthy person is looking at what they own, they're looking at what is it that produces an income. And the house doesn't produce an income unless you're using it for Airbnb.
Right.
Other real estate can produce an income, other rental property, not raw land. So a wealthy person looks at these forms that you and I will see, but they look at them differently. And the I, which is also very important, stands for investments. They are not limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Wealthy people control their investments. That's what I did when I started buying the apartment buildings. I was able to choose where they were being purchased, who we were renting them to, if we remodeled them, if we refinanced them, if we sold them. All of those were within our control. And that's what wealthy people do. They invest in areas where they have control. It could be their own business. It could be oil and gas ventures. It could be peer-to-peer lending. It could be a triple net lease. It could be other things besides stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
Wow, that was a lot.
Well, I think in your TEDx, you talked about some of those others, and some of those really grabbed my attention because I was like, wow, I'd never considered that. So you kind of threw it out there to be a loan shark, although you don't want to be a loan shark, but you want to make money available for others, maybe to be able to use that money. And then that money, because they're using it, makes money for you.
Yeah, I'll give you a simple example. I loan money to a person who loans the money out to people who are buying houses, remodeling them, and then selling them. So the person who's remodeling the house is making money. The person who buys the house is getting a house that's in great shape. The person who loaned them the money is collecting 10% on the money they're loaning to the house flipper, we'll call it. I loaned the money to the person who's lending the money to the house flipper. I'm earning 7%. And the money that I'm using to loan out at 7%, I borrowed at 3%. Okay. So I borrowed money and I'm using it to create wealth. The money that the mortgages on the apartment buildings was borrowed money from the bank. and the tenants are making the payments that cover all of the expenses. I think, Jackie, you said something about having others pay your debt. Well,
Right.
the mortgage on my apartment building is being paid by the tenants who are living there.
Right.
Hmm.
Fascinating.
Wow. Yeah.
So we just have about 10 minutes left, Rennie. I'm sure there are a multitude of other things that we could talk about and kick around. What are we missing? What else is there that you could tell us, tell our listeners about wealth and income and creating a wealth for ourselves?
Let's talk about a few more myths, because if we break
Yeah.
those up, I think that'll be valuable.
That's cool.
And a lot of people think the more money they make, the more wealth they'll create. And that was a trap that I was in for decades.
The more money we make, the more wealth we'll have.
And that's a myth.
Yep.
Because it seemed like the more money I made, the farther behind I got. Because I increased my standard of living as I made more money. And I'll just give you the quick example. When I was earning $6,500 a year as a school teacher, I was short by $100 a month. When I doubled my income, I was short by $200 a month. When I passed $100,000 in income, I was short $2,000 a month.
Yeah, it's true. That's a, there's another example of that, Rennie. I just got to throw it out there really quick. Is when I was a kid and my parents would buy houses, the houses, well, their income was reflective, but the houses really weren't that big, right? And the new houses that were being built weren't really that big. And now today you look around and these houses are huge, but you know why they're so huge? Because they have huge storage space for their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
That's why.
and you say that as I'm looking at all the stuff behind you.
Oh, I'm guilty. Totally. I'm totally guilty.
But no, Todd, you make a good point. Is that right now in real estate, everybody's looking for big. They don't look for functional. They don't look for realistic, or what fits their family. They just want big.
Well, there is a counterculture to it, and it's the mini home culture.
Right.
And I've seen more than 500 square foot mobile homes that someone can tow, and it's like 2-story, but it's just the coolest spaces. It's like, the old Airstream trailers where you can cook in it, you can sleep in it, you can read in it, and you could take it wherever you want.
But can you actually live with somebody else in that teeny tiny little space without going crazy?
That's how well you get along with them.
I think they're finding that it's really cool for a really short period of time, and then it's time to move on.
Yeah, I think a lot of those little mini houses now are being used as investments, and so they're being used.
You can rent them out. Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's another myth I thought was important to break up is the more money you make, the more wealthy.
And why is that? Why does that happen, Rennie? Is it go back to the attitude that we have?
Yes.
And that we're not paying ourselves first?
It's the idea that, if I just make more money, it'll solve the problems. That was the attitude that I had. That is not the attitude a wealthy person has.
Right.
As an example, when I started realizing that even small amounts of money, this is another myth, small amounts of money, some people fear it doesn't matter. You go to Starbucks, you pay $10 for a cup of coffee and a latte. It doesn't matter. That $10 a month, if invested, that's $300 a month. It's $3,600 a year in 30 years, and you can earn 12% on it. There's a lot of places where you can invest it and earn 12%. Creates a $1 million portfolio, $10 a day. Small amounts of money do make a difference in creating wealth.
It's amazing exponentially how it can grow, especially if you get a good interest rate or it's a safe interest rate. Yeah.
Or good earnings. Yeah. And the bank's not going to do it, but I'm not talking about setting it in the bank for it to sit. And the other,
the worst.
People think they need a good credit score to create wealth. Well, I was 50. I had credit card debt. I'd been through 2 divorces and a business failure. My credit was no good. And so I used the credit of my new wife and this realtor to be added to the loan for the little triplex that we first bought because I couldn't qualify to be on the loan if I was by myself.
Yeah.
That's why wealth creation is a team sport again. So it's things of this nature. If you don't have money, you can partner with someone who does. You don't need money to create wealth. People say, oh, well, it takes money to make money. No, use someone else's money.
It just costs money, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You
How
can
do you- how do you
create
find
wealth.
those-
Yeah,
How
from
do you
debt.
find those individuals that that are willing to partner with you on things like that? Because if your attitude stinks, are they really going to want to partner with you? Do you need to change that attitude first?
Oh, absolutely. You got to change the attitude
Yeah.
first. And I've seen it in these real estate investment clubs where poor people show up, and there are rich people there looking for poor people who have the time to go bird dog and find a property or to rehabilitate a property. And the wealthy person says, I'll share the profits with you. I'm not going to spend my time.
Right.
Oh, well, wow, that's an interesting concept, because no matter what, you make some money, right?
Exactly. The wealthy person makes money, and so does the poor person.
And the more people that you do that with, the more that you make, and you aren't stretched so thin.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Gets back to team sport again.
That's why house flipping has been such a huge market over the last decade or so.
Did you say house moving?
House flipping.
House flipping. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's been really big in the real. There's so many do-it-yourself shows on cable about flipping now because it's such a big business.
Yeah.
And that's because poor people or wealthy people can help the poor do this. Maybe the poor person is the one that has the skills to redesign and flip, whereas the wealthy person is just offering the
funding,
investment money.
Correct.
And then they split the
exactly. I see it over and over where someone has construction skills. They have no money.
Right.
Great partnership.
Right.
Fascinating. Well, my friends, we only have about 4 minutes left. Rennie, I want to thank you for showing up today as you, sharing your great thoughts and ideas with us, and that huge smile. Look at that smile. It's just a big
my life is blessed. I mean, I have fabulous relationships. I have health. I have prosperity. There's nothing left. I can't help but smile.
And you had a blast today too, right?
Oh yeah, loved it being with the two of you.
Is there one last parting shot? We got about 3 minutes left. One last parting shot that you would like to throw out to our listeners? Buy the book, right? Buy the book.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and if they go to my website, they can get either the Wealth on Any Income book or the Attitudes of the Wealthy, and 100%. I say 100% of the profits. I donate 100% of the proceeds. Whatever I get on the books, I just donate it all to the Shelter to Soldier.
Nice.
And
that's so cool.
You know, it's such an honor to be able to do that. And, you know, and getting back to Warren Buffett's quote or whatever, it's you know.
Well, someone who rescued a couple of dogs about 6 years ago, they are special. Those rescue dogs, they understand what you're doing for them. And so I'm very grateful to you for doing what you do, not only to help the dogs, which is ultimately important to me, but also to help our service men and women who have sacrificed so much for our freedoms that we have here. That they have this dog that now will serve them and help them in every way possible. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I've seen miraculous turnarounds from someone who came back with traumatic brain injuries, who stuttered so badly he couldn't communicate with his own wife and children and just was housebound. And when he got his service dog, it allowed him to go out and attend his girls' soccer practices. He could go into a department store with his wife. You know, he's not fully functioning, but so much more. And he can speak. The man went from stuttering so badly he couldn't communicate to being a public speaker.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's cool. We got to find that guy, but we are out of time. Thanks again, Rennie, for coming on the show today. I hope you'll come back.
I'd love to.
Okay. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell a friend about the show. Please sign up for the newsletter so you can find out what's going on about the show and all of that, on and on and on. Lastly, please choose to check out Rennie's book and make it a great day, because both of those things are choices. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, folks.